Hello and welcome to the Tiggy Team. I'm Tiggy, your host, and today we're going to be ranking every episode of The Mandalorian, seasons 1 and 2, from worst to best. Let's get started. Alright, so we are kicking it off with Chapter 10, The Passenger. So this is Season 2, Episode 2. So the Mandalorian must ferry a passenger with precious cargo on a risky journey. So basically, there's this kind of frog-looking lady, as basically everyone calls her, and the Mandalorian is tasked with bringing that frog lady, basically, all of her eggs to a certain planet where the father is, and the Mandalorian is tasked to keep her safe. And you'd think it'd be a nice little ride around the galaxy, but of course, a lot of stuff happens. The Mandalorian ends up crashing his ship as people are attacking him, and he must repair his ship in freezing temperatures. And of course, he gets it repaired after a while, and they eventually do indeed get to the planet. But really, this episode is just filler, and a lot of people would agree with me. It's basically just a filler episode. Not much really happens in terms of plot development for season 2, and it's just there to be there, and it's still a fun episode even if it is filler. Alright, up next we have Chapter 2, The Child. So this is Season 1, Episode 2. So basically, what happens is the Mandalorian goes to Tatooine, and he basically is talking to this person. You may know him as the dude that says, like, I have spoken. He's a really cool character, a really great character, actually, and a great idea for the show. But basically, the Mandalorian goes to these Jawas because his ship has been destroyed, and they task him with basically finding this egg that the Jawas like to eat from this gigantic monster. So the Mandalorian goes to the cave where the monster's at. He fights it. He almost dies, but Baby Yoda saves him by using the Force power that he has for the first time. You see him use the Force, and he saves him, and the Mandalorian delivers it safely and gets the parts he needs in the end of the episode. It's a great episode, definitely a little bit of filler, but I'd say that mostly at this point in season 1, I mean, the show's kind of just kicking off, so it's fine if you have that filler now because you don't really know what's filler and what's not filler at the start of the show like that. And it's definitely great filler if it is filler, and I wouldn't really call it filler. It's just a great episode overall. And yeah, that is why Chapter 2, The Child, is at number 15. Up next, at number 14, we have Chapter 1, The Mandalorian. So Season 1, Episode 1. A Mandalorian bounty hunter tracks a target for a well-paying, mysterious client. So he gets his bounty, basically, or his, like, bounty puck thing to try to find Baby Yoda. Now, at the time, he does not know that Baby Yoda is Baby Yoda. He's just trying to find some random thing on that planet. So he goes, and he eventually finds Baby Yoda, and with the help of IG-11, the really cool, like, and annoying droid that helps him, the droid actually wants to kill the child, but the Mandalorian does not want to kill it, so he ends up killing the droid, and he eventually just delivers it. And of course, he's doing this all for some Beskar, which is basically the Mandalorian's, basically, it belongs to them. It was stolen from them in the Great Purge, which is basically just a big war, and it belongs to the Mandalorian people. So yeah, that is why Chapter 1 is at number 14 on my list. At number 13, we have Chapter 3, The Sin. So this is Season 1, Episode 3. The battered Mandalorian returns to his client for reward, but some deals don't end neatly. So he gives Baby Yoda to his client, who then is going to give him Beskar. Once he gives it to them, he kind of is like suspicious, and he doesn't really trust them with Baby Yoda, as he's kind of grown to like the child. So basically, he breaks back in, and he tries to steal Baby Yoda back. And of course, this is kind of like pre- or ex-Empire people. This is an ex-Empire person. So they have some stormtroopers around, and he fights the stormtroopers and basically just breaks back in and gets back what he wants. So it's a pretty good episode. I love the action in this episode. I think, it's kind of just straightforward. It's a pretty good episode. So that is why Chapter 3, The Sin, is at number 13 on my list. At number 12, we have Chapter 6, The Prisoner. So this is the Mandalorian is part of a crew of mercenaries springing a convict from a prison ship. So this episode, Mandalorian basically goes to this old person that he knows, and he gets a job from them to work with all these crazy villains across the galaxy, try to get some money. And there's a lot of really cool people, including Mayfeld, which of course appears in season 2 later, which we don't know about in this point of the show, but it's a pretty good episode. He comes together with a crew, and they try to break out one of the crew members' brothers and siblings, and they end up breaking them out, but the crew does not trust Mando, so they end up trapping him in the jail, so he's stuck there, except, of course, the Mandalorian ends up getting out, and he fights his way through the crew, and he basically just destroys them all and comes out victorious. So it's pretty straightforward there. That is why Chapter 6, The Prisoner, is at number 12 on my list. Up next, at number 11, we have Chapter 5, The Gunslinger. On a familiar desert planet, the Mandalorian helps a rookie bounty hunter who's in over his head. So there's this random bounty hunter who, of course, is a rookie who's never had a job at the guild, and the Mandalorian helps him by trying to track down a very well-respected bounty hunter, Fennec Shand. So they end up tracking her down. She's basically like a really good sniper. And, of course, she almost kills them a couple times, but in the end, they end up finding her, they trap her, and then the Mandalorian, Fennec Shand, convinces the gunslinger that the Mandalorian is worth more than she is. And of course, the gunslinger, he's starting to believe it, but then he decides no, he doesn't want to believe it, and he shoots Fennec Shand, and she dies. At least we think she dies, and at that point, she did die. And I think it's a really good episode, some cool action sequences, and of course, I feel like the acting for the gunslinger was not the best, but that's fine. And it introduced some really cool characters, including Fennec Shand, who's going to play a pretty big part in season 2. So yeah, that is why Chapter 5, The Gunslinger, is at number 11 on my list. At number 10, we have Chapter 11, The Heiress. The Mandalorian braves high seas and meets unexpected allies. So this is season 2, episode 3. So basically, after they arrive on the planet with the Frog Lady, he goes on this other mission and finds Bo-Katan, which is from the Clone Wars, and it's actually played by the same voice actor and played by the same actor that was in the Clone Wars. So that's pretty cool there. But Bo-Katan, he meets Bo-Katan and Death Watch, basically. They're part of Death Watch. They raid this big ship that has some crucial information on where the Darksaber, which belongs to the Death Watch people and the Mandalorian people, belongs to them, which Moff Gideon has. So they break into that ship, they get the information they need, and, they kind of learn a lot of stuff. And Bo-Katan says to Mando, says that you can find Ahsoka Tano on a planet, and, Ahsoka might help them. So the Mandalorian, of course, gets that from this. So it's some pretty cool plot development there. And it's overall a great episode. A lot of mystery and a lot of suspense. And it's done very well. And of course, kind of is a half filler episode, but still pretty big in plot. And I think it is definitely a well done episode. So that is why Chapter 11, The Heiress, is at number 10 on my list. At number 9, we have Chapter 7, The Reckoning. So this is Season 1, Episode 7, and an old contact extends an invitation for the Mandalorian to make peace with his enemies. So this old contact is Moff Gideon, of course, and he wants Mando to hand over the child, as they've been trying to basically find it across the galaxy. So he fights him, and of course they get into this big battle. Eventually, the Mandalorian is trapped with some of his friends in basically this little building where the Empire is now surrounding all of it with their army, and it's kind of hard to. They're just stuck there, and the Mandalorian does not know what to do, and the episode ends. It's a very action-packed episode, and of course I forgot to mention that the person, I don't even really know his name, the person that I mentioned earlier that says, I have spoken, He dies in this episode saving the child, which is pretty cool, so good there. But the action is great in this episode. I really love kind of just the Empire coming, and Moff Gideon is definitely a cool character to introduce. It's kind of sad that Moff Gideon appeared in the last 2 episodes of season 1, but that's fine. We get him a lot in season 2 as he is the main villain of the show. So that is why Chapter 7, The Reckoning, is at number 9 on my list. Alright, at number 8, we have the Marshal. So the Mandalorian is drawn to the Outer Rim in search of others of his kind. So this is Season 2, Episode 1. So this is a really cool episode. I feel like, it brought in Boba Fett's armor. I shouldn't say Boba Fett. Boba Fett's armor from this one dude who's kind of just faking as him. And he's protecting this village, this town, from Tusken Raiders. And eventually the Mandalorian, kind of helps him as they kind of get into a fight, but they go on an agreement to help each other and try to protect the town from this big sand creature that's been just stealing things from them. So they basically side with the Tusken Raiders, and they become friends with them, and they fight this big sand creature in the desert, which is very action-packed. It's a great sequence there. Very suspenseful. This is also a very long episode, which I'm not complaining. It's the longest one of the show, with 55 minutes of a runtime. It's a very good episode. I love the battle between the sand creature and the people, and I feel like it's just cool seeing Boba Fett's armor. Kind of teases Boba Fett for later, so pretty cool there. And yeah, I feel like that is why Chapter 9, The Marshal, is at number 8 on my list. At number 7, we have Chapter 4, The Sanctuary. So this is Season 1, Episode 4. The Mandalorian teams up with an ex-soldier to protect a farming village from raiders. So, of course, this is basically the episode where he goes to just a random planet, and, of course, people are trying to find him. There's a big bounty on Mando's back for stealing the child back, which is against the guild code. So people are trying to go after him, and he hides on this island, and he meets someone there, an ex-soldier who basically helps him, and they go to this village where they protect the village from this old, these random dog people. They kind of look like dogs. They're just basically these monster people, and they have an AT-AT, an Empire AT-AT, and they're fighting the village, and the Mandalorian, with help, of course, stops them as he trains the village, to kind of be better and get better at fighting as he trains them. And of course, they fight and win. And the village wants the Mandalorian to stay, but he can't anymore because the people now know where he is. Because this one bounty hunter found him, and it's not safe to stay there anymore. So at the end of the episode, he leaves. It's a very good episode, very good concept. I love how he trains the villagers. It's really cool to see, how boring and how bad they are. And then, they get really cool, and there's a great action sequence at the end to protect the village. So that is why Chapter 4, The Sanctuary, is at number 7 on my list. At number 6, we have Chapter 12, The Siege. So this is Season 2, Episode 4. The Mandalorian rejoins old allies for a new mission. So, of course, with help from Greef Kargas and some other people, he goes on this basically break-in mission where he breaks into this Imperial base, and he's trying to, in the Imperial base, he learns some very interesting things. The Empire is basically developing these dark troopers, which, of course, we don't know at that point, but we find out later that they're developing these dark troopers to fight against the Mandalorian and basically just the Republic, or actually at this point it'd be the Resistance. So they're building that to fight against them, and of course they learn that as they're infiltrating the base, and it's a very interesting episode. Adds a lot of plot development and mystery to the show, and I really like the return of Greef Kargas. I wish he was in more of the season, but of course he wasn't, which is kind of sad. And of course, this is a great episode, a lot of good action, and I love just, this episode looked really clean and really good, and I think it was definitely one of the better episodes for that. And yeah, I feel like that is why Chapter 12, The Siege, is at number 6 on my list. At number 5, we have Chapter 15, The Believer. So this is Season 2, Episode 7. So to move against the Empire, the Mandalorian needs the help of an old enemy. So he basically goes to Mayfeld, which I mentioned earlier. He helps and goes to an old enemy, Mayfeld, who agrees to help him basically go to this Imperial base and learn some more information. Of course, the Mandalorian takes off his mask in front of people for like the first time ever, and that was pretty cool. I mean, not the first time ever. I guess he took off his mask in front of IG-11, but not in front of people. So he takes off his mask at one point in this, which is really, really cool. And there's just a big battle that happens, and they do a lot of really cool things there. The action is great in this episode, and basically everyone's there. Fennec Shan's there, like everyone's there, and it's really cool. Kind of team up between the Mandalorian and Mayfeld, which I love the actor from Mayfeld. He's really cool. And yeah, I feel like that is why Chapter 15, The Believer, is at number 5 on my list. At number 4, we have Chapter 8, Redemption. So this is Season 1, Episode 8, the finale of Season 1. It says the Mandalorian and his allies come to know their true enemy, who already knows much about them. So, of course, their true enemy is indeed Moff Gideon. So, of course, they're trapped in that building, and the Empire is trying to, flush them out. Except they find, an escape route, which is basically this vent through the sewers. And, of course, the Mandalorian tries to fight them and gets injured, actually. So, of course, IG-11, the Mandalorian needs to take off his mask to basically fix it, and that's against his code, the Mandalorian code, but all the actual humans leave, so only a droid can see him, and basically a droid is fine if it sees the Mandalorian's face. So the droid fixes him up, and they're ready to go. As they go down this tunnel with a bunch of lava in it, and the Empire is actually waiting for them at the end of the tunnel. So they basically get IG-11 to self-destruct himself, to basically, sacrifice himself to save them. As at the end of the tunnel, the Empire is waiting. They put him on the boat. He walks through the lava, and he's basically just like a bomb. He blows up all the Empire people because he self-destructs, and they get out of the tunnel safely, away from the Empire. But then Moff Gideon, of course, finds them. He knows who they are, and they go into an epic battle while he's in his TIE fighter. They eventually end up shooting Moff Gideon down, and the episode ends. Of course, Moff Gideon, you think he's dead. Of course, at the end of the episode, out of the ashes, he pulls out the Darksaber, which belongs to the Mandalorian people and the Death Watch people, as I mentioned earlier. He pulls out the Darksaber to get him out of the wreckage, and that is the end of Season 1. Definitely a great finale, a lot of really cool action, and definitely the best episode of Season 1 by far. So that is why Chapter 8, Redemption, is at number 4 on my list. At number 3, we have Chapter 14, The Tragedy. So the Mandalorian and child travel to an ancient site. This is Season 2, Episode 6. So this marks the return of Boba Fett, who comes in and basically helps the Mandalorian because the Mandalorian has Boba Fett's armor, and Boba Fett knows that. So he's going after the Mandalorian to basically get his armor back with Fennec Shan, who, of course, we thought died at the end of Season 1, but he actually didn't. So, we thought Fennec Shan died, but of course Boba Fett repaired her up and made her better, so she's kind of like his assistant, and they do really good with that. And, Boba Fett return has some great action sequences fighting the stormtroopers, as the child Baby Yoda is trying to basically reach out to another Jedi that isn't Ahsoka Tano in the previous episode, and he's basically trying to reach out, and we don't know if anyone's going to get the message, but someone does eventually, but we don't know if someone's gonna get the message, and basically they just leave that planet, and Boba Fett is now working with the Mandalorian. So that is Chapter 14, The Tragedy. At number 2, we have Chapter 13, The Jedi. So this is Season 2, Episode 5. The Mandalorian journeys to a world ruled by a cruel magistrate who has made a powerful enemy. So basically, the powerful enemy is Ahsoka Tano, as she is fighting this person and basically trying to get this village out of like slaves, because they're all slaves in the village. So Ahsoka finally kind of breaks them out, and it's very good action sequences there, and it's really cool to see the return of Ahsoka Tano from the Clone Wars and Rebels. It's really cool to see that. They did a good job with her. And of course, she breaks in the place. They fight, do a lot of fighting, and in that episode, they mention Grand Admiral Thrawn, who is probably going to be a villain in the Ahsoka Tano show. So definitely stay tuned for that show. That'll be pretty cool. So Grand Admiral Thrawn is mentioned, and we kind of get a tease on that. So that is really cool because he is a very important character in the Star Wars universe. So that is why Chapter 13, The Jedi, is at number 2 on my list. And at number 1, we have Chapter 16, The Rescue, Season 2 Finale. So, it says the Mandalorian and his allies attempt a daring rescue. So, of course, they're trying to rescue the child that was stolen in episode 6 of season 2. They're trying to basically get the child back. So of course the Mandalorian is going, and they're breaking into this Imperial base, and they have a really cool plan with a bunch of people coming in, fighting, and basically the Mandalorian and Moff Gideon get into this big lightsaber duel, and they fight each other. It's really cool action sequences there. And they're about to lose as Moff Gideon brings in the Dark Troopers. But the Mandalorian fights them off. But they're about to break into where basically the Mandalorian and his friends are hiding in. They're about to lose. But what happens is the distress call that Baby Yoda sent in episode 6 of season 2. Someone finally comes and they know they're in danger. So it ends up being none other than Luke Skywalker. So he comes in. He fights them like crazy. He just absolutely wrecks all the Dark Troopers. And he comes in, he saves them, and he takes the child because he needs to train the child. That's kind of the whole thing of season 2. Mandalorian's trying to find someone that can train Baby Yoda, whose name is Grogu, as we learn. And yeah, Luke Skywalker comes, and that definitely shocked a lot of people, including myself. And, you know, just the return of Luke Skywalker is probably like one of the best parts of season 2, if not the best part of the whole show. And I feel like that's why, you know, this episode is definitely really, really good. As you can tell, you probably know that I like season 2 a bit more than season 1. But both seasons are great. And yeah, that is the ranking of all the Mandalorian episodes. Alright, that is all for today, guys. Pretty long one there. Was 16 episodes to rank, so definitely pretty long one there. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please subscribe to the TTT team if you haven't yet. If you don't know if you want to subscribe, go on ahead and watch a couple more of my videos, and then please consider hitting that subscribe button. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, and as always, thank you for viewing. Goodbye, everyone.